Hello and welcome back to my channel 60 and Smashing It. A few years ago we sold our property, put everything into storage and drove to France with no real plan as to what we were going to do next. Most people thought we were completely mad, and strangely 5 years later we did it all again. But looking back now, I think it taught me something really important, that it's never too late to start again. I used to think that life was supposed to follow a fairly fixed path. You know, a home, staying in one place, stability, and it was for a while for us. I mean, for 20 years. That was until we became empty nesters. Well, you know that feeling. You've got to try and find something to do again. And for us, we didn't know whether to downsize from our modest 4-bedroom house, or I say upsize, that was never on the cards, but it turned out that's what we did. So we bought a house that needed everything doing to it in the countryside. It needed new central heating, a new boiler, a new log burner, new double glazing, new gates to the front of the property, and fully decorating. The whole garden and surrounding garden was an absolute jungle. And we decided to take that on, and gradually we renovated it over a period of 2 years. That doesn't sound a long time, but believe me, we worked very hard in that time. And after 2 years, we started thinking, what now? And again, we felt that we needed to change. We didn't know what we were going to do next. In the meantime, I'd already taken early retirement from my job, but my husband was still working. And at the time, I was getting quite lonely on my own. It was like, how do I fill my time? So I started doing a few things like renovating furniture, and I quite enjoyed that actually. But other than that, it was still a bit lonely. So we decided, why not? Children have grown up. They're pursuing their own lives and careers now. Let's do something we'd always wanted to do. So we literally sold up, put everything we owned into storage, packed as much as we could into our car, and drove to France. That was it. Only one-way ticket to France. We owned nothing in France. We had nothing to rent. We went over there and we stayed with somebody that I'd met on a Facebook group who put us up for the first night, and we then took on a let for a gîte for 3 months over in France. It was a difficult time for us too, in another way, because Brexit was about to happen, and it would mean that if we didn't secure our residency in France before Brexit came into play, it would mean that we might never be able to do that. Financially, there were big implications and changes ahead, and we would have to meet higher income levels to be able to live in France. So we had a bit of a time scale to try and meet that and to produce the paperwork in order to live in France. We did, obviously we did eventually manage that, and we carried on, like I say, for 4 months till we found our property that we eventually bought. Again, this property needed work doing to it. Not so much things like central heating, etc. in this case, but it needed a huge amount of redecoration. It had had major things done to it in the previous 10 years, but the decoration was not at all to our taste. There were rooms painted bright red, bright green, dark colours, and it was a beautiful house waiting to be restored. Basically, it was a maison de maître, so it had a lot of character. It had no garden to speak of, but somehow we could see the potential in it. So, like we would do, we just grabbed the bull by the horns and decided to go for it. In the course of the next year, we completely redecorated. We had a pool put in, which was an essential, and we had a gîte there as well, next to the property, adjoining the property, which we completely refurbished, if you like, and furnished, And so we then entered the gîte business in France, having never done that before. We also, at the time, as we were needing to make an income for ourselves, we decided we would take on students. That is, teaching French students English. Now, in France, that is quite a big income stream, really. The teaching in France, they don't do so much English language in their classes. It's very much done by the old school ways, I would say, of like blackboard ways and textbook, as opposed to conversational language. So a lot of the families that can afford to, they like to send their children away to have a residential week with an English family, where you deliver a style of lesson for a couple of hours a day, and at the same time, the rest of the time, they're just speaking English with you. So that is what we decided to do, and I would teach the English lessons. I was qualified to teach the English lessons, and we would take the children out, play games, etc. with them, and we did that for 2 years as well. So after 2 years of running both the gîte business and teaching students, there were signs that things were not going to work out as we'd wanted to. For instance, our daughter suddenly had announced just shortly after we'd got over there that she was pregnant. That on its own meant several trips back and forth the UK in the course of the first couple of years. And at the same time, it also meant that their lives, our children's lives for working, they were not able to come and see us at any old time, shall we say. It was more they needed to come when there were set holiday times, which coincided with the times we were going to be full running our gîte business. We had to have a think and decide what to do. We decided that we needed to put the family first. We'd done what we wanted to do. We'd gone to France, having wanted to do that for years. So we felt we'd experienced that. We'd lived our dream again, and it was time to move on. What to? We weren't quite sure at that point in time. However, we were now at this point that we needed to change again. Selling up in France was a really big thing for us because it was only the two of us that were able to do it. We did have help from our local friends and neighbours, but overall we had so much to do because we had moved from a 5-bedroom home in the UK to a large maison de maître 5-bedroom property in France. We had huge barns with lots of things that we'd never needed to use there in the end, and we had to organise several sales to sell things. We knew that we were going to need to put some things into storage coming back to the UK, but we couldn't put all of that back in storage again. And we knew that when we did eventually buy another place in the UK, we would actually be buying a much smaller place this next time, probably like a 1 or 2 bedroom property eventually. And on this occasion, we weren't going to buy another property. No, we decided we were going to go travelling. So this was also met with shock horror from our family and friends. You know, some thought it was a great idea to go travelling until they realised we weren't going to buy a property or have a property to call our own to live in. In our heads, the plan was we will visit our children and have holidays with them at theirs, one in the UK and one in America, and in between travel. Brilliant idea, that's what we thought. And that's what we started putting in place. We did love our time in France. We have lovely friends and neighbours that we've made for life. And we've had wonderful experiences that we never would have had if we'd stayed still. What changed for us over the time was the idea that we had to stay in one place. That was quite a big shift for us, as we had thought that France was going to be our forever home as well. At some point we stopped believing that that was the rule, as we'd come across groups of people who call themselves nomads, who like to travel, and they sell everything up. Well, some people maybe keep a home, some don't, but they just like to travel as much as they can. And we actually felt we were starting to fit into that criteria. So yeah, we'd gone from probably moving back to the UK and buying a little small home to actually thinking, nope, we're not going to buy this now. We're just going to travel and keep traveling for as long as we can. Now, that as long as we can in our eyes is possibly 3 to 5 years at the moment. We'll see how we go. We realised we didn't have to stay in one place forever, and we chose travel and flexibility over a permanent lifestyle. We've taken a lot of risks that a lot of people wouldn't take otherwise, and we've met a lot of people that we wouldn't normally have met either. I don't think there's only one way to live. I think it depends what you want from life, and you have to make that decision for yourself. Sometimes relying on family and friends to influence you means that you don't make the decisions that you want to make. It's all very well listening to your family and friends and hoping that they have the best intentions for you, but it just means that you are feeling guilty if you choose a different path to that. We think that nothing is forever, so why not do what you want to do and give it a go? You can always change your mind and do something different, which is exactly what we've done as we've gone along. For us, life has never felt boring. I'm glad to say we have had a lot of changes from our 50s onwards, at times when you would expect to be settled down more so. And for us, it actually has meant life has been far more interesting. So you don't need to follow one fixed path. Just enjoy what life brings you. If you make the effort, you've got the freedom, the experiences, and lots of memories that you'll have to look back on. And although we feel that we've been lucky in some ways, even if you don't have a home to actually sell, then there are other ways that you can make this achievable. If you have the desire to want to change, that is the biggest part, a passport comes in handy. You can always look for ways of working in other countries, and some countries are a lot more flexible than others if you're still of working age. Otherwise, your pension can go quite far in some countries too. So look into it if you really want to. You're never too old to change. So do you think we were crazy? Would you actually choose freedom and travelling over settling down? Or have you actually done something similar yourself? If you'd like to follow along with me and see more on my channel, please hit that like and subscribe button, as they say, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.